On June 2nd, 2021, WWE released 6 more wrestlers, meaning that 28 members of the talent roster have left the promotion this year alone. On August 31st, these 6 names will be able to begin working for other wrestling promotions, which as always has fans speculating as to where they could show up next. In today's video, that's exactly what I'm going to do as we look at each of these individual releases and discuss what could be up next for them in their careers. Santana Garrett is somebody most WWE fans may not be familiar with due to her lack of time on the main roster, but this doesn't take away from her experience in the wrestling business. Debuting in 2009, Garrett would work for promotions such as Shine, Shimmer, Stardom, and Women of Wrestling, with her most high-profile pre-WWE appearances being for TNA Wrestling under the name Brittany. Garrett would make occasional appearances for NXT as enhancement talent, as well as a first round match in the first Mae Young Classic, losing to Piper Niven. She'd eventually go on to sign with the promotion full-time on a developmental deal in 2019, making appearances on NXT, Main Event, as well as one match on Raw, losing to Bianca Belair. Despite her lack of TV time in WWE, she would go on to impress enough that she was given a place in the Women's Royal Rumble in 2021. She was then told that a main roster call-up was imminent. Before her release, she was said to have been told that she would be a member of the SmackDown roster. Unfortunately, the Rumble match was her last for the company, as she was released before her call-up could happen. As for her future, with NWA starting to run shows again, Garrett might be wise to head there whilst avoiding the likes of Impact and AEW to ensure that she gets the match time she needs to enhance her reputation. This could then lead to a potential return to WWE or NXT, who were clearly high on her. Next, we have the second of the female releases. This time we take a look at Ruby Riott. Ruby has been with WWE for shorter than you might realize, having only made her NXT debut in 2017. She was then brought to the main roster and given a stable that was named after her, teaming with Liv Morgan and Sarah Logan under the name The Riott Squad. The group would become close friends in real life, even sharing a tattoo as a tribute to their time together. Whilst they were never successful in terms of gold, the group would become a staple of the WWE Women's division. In 2019, the group was disbanded when Liv Morgan was moved to SmackDown in the Superstar Shakeup, which gave Riott time to have shoulder surgery and to repair a bilateral injury. She returned to TV to attack her former teammate Liv Morgan on Raw, sparking a feud between the two, which somehow led to the duo being reunited as a team. They'd continue to work as a tag team in the women's division before Riott's eventual release. As for her future, she will likely go by her pre-WWE name Heidi Lovelace, with having no trouble finding work. I think she could thrive in any promotion, but it would be cool to see her return to Stardom, which is a Joshi promotion in Japan, where she debuted shortly before signing with WWE. This would give her plenty of in-ring time to show what she's capable of against credible in-ring talent. The brand seems to be on the rise after Bushiroad, which is New Japan's parent company, bought them out, and she could play a key part in their international expansion. Debuting in 2013, Buddy Murphy made a name for himself as one half of the Blake and Murphy tag team with Alexa Bliss in tow. After a successful tag run in NXT, going as far as to winning the NXT tag titles with his partner Wesley Blake, Murphy lost 25 pounds in early 2018 to become eligible for the 205 Live brand, where he really began to pick up some steam. He went on to be crowned the Cruiserweight champion in his home country of Australia, defeating Cedric Alexander at Super Showdown in front of 70,000 people, and would eventually be aligned with Seth Rollins as his disciple, giving him the biggest spotlight of his career so far. The duo would go on to win the Raw Tag Team titles, and then would feud with Rey and Dominic Mysterio. After a face turn and a love angle with Rey's daughter Alia, Murphy would be taken off TV before a brief reunion with Rollins. He only managed to appear in 3 matches in 2020, 2021 before his release in June of that year. He no doubt has all the talent required to become a valuable asset wherever he plants his flag next, and for me, the X Division would be the ideal first destination. This would give him a sound platform to show off his skills without being lost in the shuffle. From there, he could establish himself as a key player in Impact Wrestling. Next up, we have Lana, whose future is difficult to predict. She started her time in WWE as the manager of her eventual real-life husband Rusev, guiding him to early success on the main roster after a brief run in NXT. Donning her fake Russian accent, Lana would draw considerable heat from the WWE universe, belittling the United States whilst touting the superiority of Russia. The duo would go through some highs and lows in their time in the company, with her husband going on to win the US title on multiple occasions. Those were the highs, but the lows were low. WWE seemingly had an obsession with splitting up the couple on screen, as Lana went on to be paired with Dolph Ziggler, whilst Rusev would go on to gift Summer Rae a fish. In a sign of their unhappiness with their booking, they revealed to TMZ that they were now engaged, which forced an end to their on-screen storyline. But that wouldn't be the end. Years later, Lana and Rusev would be written into a storyline which would see the former go on to have intimate scenes with Bobby Lashley, whilst her real-life husband watched on. The only plausible explanation for this seems to be that it was a deliberate attempt to publicly embarrass the Bulgarian brute. After he had enough, Rusev went on to become Miro in AEW, whilst Lana would go on to have a singles run where she was put through an announce table week after week for over 2 months by Nia Jax. After an unsuccessful run in the women's tag division with Naomi, Lana was let go in the latest batch of releases. Whilst she's hardly Io Shirai when it comes to in-ring work, she's always had big support from the audience, but these facts make her future hard to call. On one hand, she could go the obvious route and join her husband in All Elite Wrestling, once again becoming his manager, but her social media following could lead her down any path she chooses. She has a history in music, acting and modeling, all careers she could now pursue to a higher level given her popularity. With this one, I guess only time will tell if she chooses to stay in the wrestling business. And quickly before we continue, make sure you scroll down and hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upcoming videos as we head towards 20,000 subscribers. But now you've done that, let's get on with the video. Aleister Black is one of the biggest missed opportunities in recent WWE history. The guy showed how much of a star he could be in NXT after his rise to the very top of the brand. Not only does he have an in-ring style based around his real-life striking ability, but he has a unique vision for his character that sets him apart from everybody else on the roster. Ever since his call-up to the main roster in 2019, fans sensed that it would be the beginning of the end, as you could tell that WWE management never really got what Aleister Black could be. After the 2019 Superstar shakeup, he was placed in an angle where he would be locked in a room, cutting promos week after week, calling for somebody to knock his door, a storyline which fizzled out and never really made much sense. Black's strengths are his promos, but he needed to be in the ring kicking heads rather than hiding away in a dark room for weeks. He continued his relatively insignificant singles run before disappearing from television for 6 months. It was speculated that this was due to his wife Zelina Vega's calls for unionization in the business, as well as her continuing to use third-party platforms such as Twitch, which led to her release. Black then returned to TV on the May 21st edition of SmackDown of this year to begin a feud with Big E, but less than 2 weeks later, he was released from his contract with no on-screen conclusion to the story. He will now return to the name Tommy End, which he used on the independent scene for 14 years. He will no doubt make appearances once again for WXW in Germany, where he really made a name for himself, but if he wrestles anywhere, it must be for New Japan Pro-Wrestling. Black grew up a fan of Japanese wrestling and preferred it to the American style. Not only that, but his striking would be the perfect fit there. Tommy End versus Minoru Suzuki, Kota Ibushi and Kenta would be matches fans would love to see. Finally, let's look at the highest profile release of probably the entire year, Braun Strowman. I say that because he was WWE Universal Champion less than a year ago. Braun made his debut in August 2015, skipping the NXT process as part of the Riott family. Although he was green, he had the look that made him a menacing figure, performing as the black sheep of the group. Strowman then began a singles run after being drafted away from his former stable, which set him on a path of destruction. He ran through local talent before moving up the card, eventually becoming known for his over-the-top feats of strength, such as flipping ambulances and ripping car doors off. Many saw him as a main eventer for years to come, and was at one point extremely popular amongst fans. However, his only major title run came after Roman Reigns chose to pull out of WrestleMania 36 due to the pandemic, with Strowman taking his place, defeating Goldberg in the process. In all honesty, this is a run that probably wouldn't have happened had Roman chose to continue. This is reflective of WWE's booking of Strowman failing to take advantage of his potential to the fullest. At his peak, he should have defeated Brock Lesnar and taken the Universal title from him, but it wasn't to be. As for his future, the sky is the limit, as every wrestling company in the world would love to have him on their books. It's unknown if he has any desire to stay in the business, or if he will seek a career in acting in Hollywood, where I'm sure he could find a role that suits him with his unique look. If he does stay in wrestling, the sensible option seems to be a move to AEW, who could afford to pay his main event salary, and with the new AEW Rampage show on the horizon, they are keen to add more star power to the roster. And before you go, why not check out my video where I discuss the futures of last month's releases, which includes the likes of Samoa Joe and Bo Dallas.